Have you ever wondered what it takes to rise from a privileged upbringing to become a silent powerhouse in America's elite circles? Dive into the captivating world of Betsey Cushing Whitney, one of the legendary Cushing Sisters, whose lives epitomized glamour, ambition, and hidden heartaches. Born into a family where intellect met high society, Betsey navigated a path filled with strategic alliances, White House intrigue, and transformative philanthropy that reshaped communities and culture. From her early days shaped by a pioneering father and a socially savvy mother, to marriages that linked her to presidential power and vast fortunes, Betsey's story is a whirlwind of elegance and resilience. What secrets lay behind her role as a White House hostess during turbulent times? How did she turn personal triumphs and tragedies into a legacy of generosity, funding hospitals, arts, and education on a massive scale? This video uncovers the untold layers of her remarkable journey, blending scandalous society whispers, enduring love and acts of kindness that outlasted her era. If you're fascinated by the real stories behind iconic figures like the Roosevelts or the whispers of mid-century high society, hit play now. You won't believe how one woman's grace influenced history. Subscribe for more deep dives into forgotten legends, Cushing's childhood and family, foundations of social prestige and orientation. Betsey Maria Cushing came into the world on May 18, 1908, right in the heart of Baltimore, Maryland, a city buzzing with that early 20th century energy where medicine and society were starting to mix in fascinating ways. She wasn't just any child. She was the middle daughter in a family of 5 kids, born to parents who embodied ambition, intellect, and a keen eye for social positioning. Her father, Harvey Williams Cushing, was already making waves as a neurosurgeon, a field that was practically in its infancy back then. And her mother, Catherine Stone Crowell, brought that polished Cleveland high society flair to the household. Betsey had 2 older siblings at the time, her brother William Harvey, born in 1903, and her sister Mary Benedict, whom everyone called Minnie, born in 1906. Later, the family grew with brother Henry Kirk in 1910, and the youngest Barbara, known as Babe, in 1915. These 5 children formed the core of the Cushing family. But it was the 3 girls, Minnie, Betsey, and Babe, who would capture the public's imagination and earn the nickname the Cushing Sisters, a trio celebrated for their stunning looks, poise, and the way they navigated the upper echelons of American society. Let's start with the family roots because they laid the groundwork for everything that followed, the prestige, the expectations, and that relentless drive toward social elevation. Harvey Williams. Cushing wasn't born into obscurity. He traced his lineage back to Matthew Cushing, who had emigrated from England and settled in Hingham, Massachusetts in the 1630s. Part of those early Puritan waves that shaped New England's old money ethos. Harvey himself hailed from Cleveland, Ohio, where his father, Henry Kirk Cushing, was a respected physician, and his mother, Betsey Maria Williams, came from a family of solid Midwestern stock. Harvey pursued medicine with a fervor that defined him, graduating from Yale in 1891 and then Harvard Medical School in 1895. He honed his skills under legends like William Stewart Halstead at Johns Hopkins, where he pioneered techniques in neurosurgery that saved countless lives. Things like using silver clips to stop bleeding in the brain or perfecting the removal of pituitary tumors. By the time Betsey was born, Harvey was an associate professor of surgery at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, a position that not only brought him acclaim but also positioned the family in a circle of intellectuals, doctors, and emerging elites. His career trajectory was meteoric. He moved to private practice while keeping ties to the hospital, and his innovations like the Cushing reflex for monitoring intracranial pressure made him a household name in medical circles. But Harvey's professional life wasn't without its toll on the family. He was a man of intense focus, often buried in his operating room or study for hours on end, performing over 2,000 brain surgeries in his lifetime, and authoring books that won him a Pulitzer Prize in 1926 for his biography of Sir William Osler. During World War I, he served as a major in the U.S. Army Medical Corps, heading a base hospital in France and getting promoted to colonel for his work on battlefield neurosurgery. This meant absences from home, letters instead of bedtime stories, and a household that revolved around his schedule. Anecdotes from the time paint him as affectionate but stern, a perfectionist who expected the same excellence from his children that he demanded in the OR. He'd quiz them on anatomy over dinner or share stories of his patients, instilling a sense of discipline and intellectual curiosity. Yet, his long hours left the day-to-day raising to Catherine, and the family moved with his career from Baltimore to Boston in 1912 when Harvey took the surgeon-in-chief role at Peterbent Brigham Hospital and a professorship at Harvard. They settled in Brookline, Massachusetts, a leafy suburb that screamed old Boston Brahmin, with summers at their cottage in Little Boar's Head, New Hampshire, where the kids could run free along the coast, building sandcastles and learning to sail. Catherine Stone Crowell, Betsey's mother, was the glue that held it all together, and her influence can't be overstated. She was the architect of the sisters' social destiny. Born in 1870 in Cleveland to Henry Clay Crowell, a successful businessman, and his wife Sarah Stone, Catherine grew up in a family with deep roots in Ohio's upper crust, where teas, charity events, and strategic alliances were the norm. She met Harvey through family connections. Her uncle was a colleague, and they married in 1902 in a ceremony that blended medical elite with society folk. Catherine, often called Kate or Gogsy by her daughters, was a woman of ambition masked in grace. With Harvey frequently absent, she managed a bustling household of 5 children, servants, and endless social obligations. She ensured the family home was a hub of refinement, formal dinners with silverware polished to a shine, music lessons on the piano, and conversations laced with literature and current events. But her real legacy was in grooming her daughters for what she saw as their ultimate path to success, marriage to men of wealth and status. In an era when women's opportunities were limited, Catherine viewed matrimony as a career, a way to secure influence and security. She drilled into Minnie, Betsey, and Babe the arts of charm, etiquette, and allure, how to enter a room with poise, how to converse with wit without overshadowing a man, how to dress in ways that accentuated their natural beauty, fair hair, slim figures, and those striking blue eyes that magazines would later rave about. The Cushing household in those early years was a blend of intellectual rigor and social polish. Imagine mornings starting with breakfast in the dining room, where Harvey, if home, might discuss a recent surgery over eggs and toast, his voice booming with enthusiasm. The children attended local schools initially, but as they grew, Catherine sent the girls to elite boarding schools to refine them further. Betsey went to Miss Porter's School in Farmington, Connecticut, a bastion for young women of privilege, where the curriculum included not just academics, but also riding, dancing, and French, skills for the debutante circuit. Minnie and Babe followed similar paths, Minnie to Westover School, Babe to Westover, and then Windsor School in Boston. These institutions weren't just about education. They were networking hubs where the girls mingled with daughters of industrialists, politicians, and old money. Betsey, as the middle child, often played the role of the observer, sandwiched between Minnie's bold personality and Babe's youthful sparkle. Minnie, the eldest girl, was a born fantasist, dreamy and artistic, always spinning tales. Betsey was more grounded, with a quiet strength that would serve her later in life. Babe, the baby, was the perfectionist like her father, driven and impeccably groomed from a young age. Family life wasn't without its shadows, though, and one tragedy in particular cast a long pall over their childhood. In 1926, when Betsey was 18, her eldest brother William, just 23, died in a horrific automobile accident near New Haven, where he was studying at Yale. William had been the golden boy, handsome, athletic, following in his father's medical footsteps. His death devastated the family. Harvey threw himself even deeper into work, authoring more papers and books as a coping mechanism, while Catherine turned to spiritualism, attending seances in hopes of contacting his spirit. The girls felt it keenly. Babe, only 11 at the time, later recalled how it shattered the family's sense of invincibility, making them cling tighter to each other. Betsey, in her late teens, might have internalized the fragility of life, pushing her toward the stability that Catherine preached through advantageous marriages. The brothers, too, shaped the dynamic. Henry, the youngest boy, survived and went on to a quieter life. But William's loss left a void, emphasizing the girls as the family's social torchbearers. As the sisters blossomed into young women, their beauty and charm became legendary, amplified by Catherine's strategic guidance. The press dubbed them the fabulous Cushing Sisters, with society pages gushing over their appearances at balls and teas. They were like swans, elegant, untouchable, gliding through a world of admirers. Catherine's lessons were explicit. Beauty was a tool, charm a weapon, and the goal was to land husbands who could provide not just comfort, but empires. She organized their debuts meticulously. Betsey made hers in Boston around 1926, a glittering affair at the Ritz-Carlton, or similar venues, where eligible bachelors from Harvard and Yale circled. Minnie debuted earlier, Babe later in 1934, but all under Catherine's watchful eye. She taught them to aim high, men with fortunes from oil, media, real estate, or politics. And it worked spectacularly. Personal life and first marriage, president's daughter-in-law. Betsey Cushing's first marriage to James Roosevelt II marked her entry into one of America's most prominent political families, blending her own elite Boston background with the rising power of the Roosevelts. This union, which lasted from 1930 to 1940, positioned her as the daughter-in-law of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who transitioned from New York governor to U.S. president during this period. The marriage encompassed social prestige, White House responsibilities, participation in key historical events, the raising of 2 daughters, and eventual dissolution amid personal tensions. The marriage began on June 4, 1930. At the time of the wedding, James was 22 years old, and Betsey was also 22, creating a match between 2 young individuals from highly influential families. The ceremony was held in Brookline, Massachusetts, specifically at the Cushing family home, which highlighted the couple's strong ties to the East Coast region and its traditions. James held the position as the eldest of 5 children, born to Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Anna Eleanor Roosevelt. During this period, FDR was actively serving as the governor of New York, a role he occupied from 1929 until 1932, just before his successful election as President of the United States in 1933. Eleanor, who was the niece of former President Theodore Roosevelt, had already started to establish herself as an important voice in areas such as social reform and women's rights through her public speaking, writings, and advocacy work. The wedding itself attracted significant attention from both the media outlets and members of high society because it brought together the Cushings, who were part of the old Boston Brahmin establishment known for their long-standing social standing, with the Roosevelts, who were politically ambitious and gaining national prominence. Her mother, Catherine Stone Crowell Cushing, functioned as a well-known socialite who carefully prepared her three daughters for marriages that would be advantageous in terms of social and economic connections by teaching them essential skills in poise, formal education, and building networks among the elite. Over time, the Cushing sisters gained legendary status in American social history due to their high-profile unions. Many went on to marry Vincent Astor, the heir to the vast Astor family fortune, while Babe first married Stanley Mortimer, Jr., an heir to the Standard Oil empire, and later wed William S. Paley, the founder of the CBS Broadcasting Network. This background of family connections shows how Betsey's marriage went beyond a simple personal commitment and instead formed a strategic alliance that strengthened the Roosevelts' links to circles of intellectual achievement and medical expertise. During the 1930s, marriages of this kind frequently had wider implications, such as supporting political campaigns by expanding social networks and securing potential financial backing from aligned families. At that point, FDR's work as governor involved addressing the early impacts of the Great Depression through state-level responses and policies, and the publicity generated by the wedding probably helped present the Roosevelt family as one that was stable, well-connected, and relatable to the public, which in turn supported his ambitions for higher office. Major newspapers, including the New York Times, provided thorough coverage of the wedding, pointing out specifics like the attendance of FDR, Eleanor, and various other notable dignitaries from political and social spheres, thereby increasing the event's overall significance in political discussions. Through this marriage, Betsey moved from her earlier status as a debutante. She had been formally presented at the British court in London back in 1927, to becoming a recognized figure within the realm of national politics, which prepared her for deeper engagement with the activities of the Roosevelt administration in the following years. Following FDR's inauguration as president in March 1933, which occurred right in the peak of the Great Depression's economic difficulties, Betsey's responsibilities within the family circle grew in important directions. James, who was frequently referred to as Jimmy by those close to him, took on the duties of his father's administrative secretary and personal aide in the White House, a position he maintained from 1933 through 1937. In this role, he managed various tasks such as handling incoming correspondence from citizens and officials, organizing daily scheduling for meetings and events, and dealing with confidential issues that arose during the rollout of the New Deal initiatives. These programs encompass specific efforts like the Civilian Conservation Corps for youth employment, the establishment of Social Security for long-term financial protection, and a series of banking reforms designed to restore stability and promote recovery from the economic downturn. James's close position to the sources of power created a highly demanding environment for him, one that called for unwavering loyalty to his father and careful discretion in all matters, though it also brought to light certain strains within the family, particularly when he experienced feelings of being outshone by FDR's strong charisma and commanding leadership presence. In response to these circumstances, Betsey regularly took over the hostess responsibilities at the White House whenever Eleanor was not available to fulfill them. Eleanor maintained an exceptionally active lifestyle, involving extensive travels across the nation to personally inspect the progress of New Deal projects in different regions, push forward advocacy for civil rights protections, support reforms in labor conditions and policies, champion causes related to women's issues and equality, and contribute regularly to her widely read syndicated newspaper column titled My Day, which offered her opinions on current events. Her periods away from the White House, which sometimes extended for several weeks at a stretch, arose not only from her numerous public duties, but also from her personal preference for a degree of independence outside the formal constraints of White House life, shaped in part by the complexities in her own marriage to FDR. When stepping into the role of substitute hostess, Betsey handled the organization of various events, such as formal state dinners with set protocols, afternoon teas for smaller groups, official receptions for large assemblies, and more informal get-togethers intended for key politicians, diplomats from other countries, and influential personalities in society. This work demanded precise and careful planning on her part. She had to choose menus that aligned with the frugal standards of the Depression period to avoid excess while still upholding an elegant presentation, compile guest lists that were strategically designed to encourage political alliances and cooperation, and guide conversations during the events to help move forward FDR's key objectives in governance. As an example, she could arrange gatherings for the wives of congressional members, to cultivate backing for upcoming bills, or host sessions for foreign envoys, at moments when debates over U.S. isolationism were particularly heated. Being a woman in her mid-20s at the time, Betsey showed impressive composure and skill in managing these tasks, relying on the social education she had received in her family's household, where proper etiquette and graces were emphasized as fundamental. According to notes from biographers who examined her life, her natural charm and sharp intelligence proved highly effective in these social environments, aiding in the projection of a cohesive family front even when there were private tensions at play. This type of contribution held value in that historical time because the public persona of the first family played a part in shaping national morale during challenging years. Eleanor's outward activism worked alongside FDR's policy efforts, but Betsey's efforts behind the scenes helped sustain the ongoing tradition of hospitality and openness at the White House. Betsey's participation in these activities reached past basic home-related duties and connected to aiding the administration's work in diplomatic relations and political strategies, illustrating the ways women in upper society applied their abilities in subtle influence. The flexibility she displayed in this phase pointed ahead to her future work in philanthropy, where she would apply comparable social talents to support various charitable organizations and causes. A particularly notable event that took place during Betsey's involvement with the Roosevelts happened in June 1939, when she was present to join FDR for a drive and a picnic with King George VI and Queen Elizabeth at the Roosevelt family's estate located in Hyde Park, New York. This royal visit spanned from June 7th through June 12th, 1939, marking the initial trip by a reigning monarch from Britain to the United States with the intent to bolster relations between the Anglo-American nations during a time of increasing tensions in Europe. Actions by Adolf Hitler, such as the annexation of Czechoslovakia and issuing threats toward Poland, had intensified worries about the potential for war, and Britain was eager to gain backing from the United States in the face of prevailing isolationist views among Americans. FDR, who pushed for providing aid to allied countries through future laws like the Lend-Lease program that was eventually put into effect in 1941, welcomed the royals as a means to make the alliance more personal and approachable. On the date of June 11th, at the location called Top Cottage, a simpler retreat that FDR had designed on his own in Hyde Park, the assembled group participated in an informal picnic that included typical American foods such as hot dogs, baked beans, and strawberry shortcake for dessert. FDR took the initiative to drive the king and queen along the scenic Hudson River path in his Ford convertible that was modified with hand controls, an adaptation made to accommodate his paralysis resulting from polio, enabling him to control the vehicle using levers instead of pedals. Betsey's inclusion in the event brought a sense of family to the occasion, as she was part of the limited party that also consisted of Eleanor, James, and a few chosen aides who were there to assist. Descriptions from historical records, including those preserved in FDR's presidential library archives and depictions in films such as Hyde Park on Hudson, released in 2012, recount how the king ate his hot dog, starting with utensils like a knife and fork before switching to eating it by hand, which turned into a humorous emblem of crossing cultural divides, and this was covered in newspapers to help dispel perceptions of British elitism. The overall diplomatic effect of the event was considerable. It built individual connections between FDR and George VI, who both had personal stories of surmounting disabilities, with the king's stutter being one example, and it assisted in changing American public sentiment toward greater involvement in international affairs, playing a role in the later alliance during the war. Although Betsey's part was not the main focus in the official records of protocols, it contributed warmth and a relaxed vibe to the gathering. As a younger member of the family, she probably took part in light conversations that helped make the setting more comfortable for everyone. Her being there put her close to the center of diplomacy in the time leading up to World War II, showing how events in a family's private life could have effects on broader public policies. The picnic served as an example of FDR's skillful approach to diplomacy on a personal level, mixing elements of family routine with matters of state, to foster stronger ties across the Atlantic, with Betsey representing the more accessible aspect of the Roosevelt family. Throughout the course of their marriage, Betsey and James placed emphasis on creating a family, resulting in the birth of two daughters who took on aspects of the Roosevelt background while developing their own separate paths in life. Their older daughter, Sarah Delano Roosevelt, came into the world on March 13, 1932, in New York, and was given a name in honor of FDR's mother, Sarah Ann Delano Roosevelt. Sarah's early years were spent during the period when the family was connected to the White House, giving her a childhood filled with advantages like playing at the Hyde Park property and encounters with global leaders, though it also included the disruptions caused by her parents' eventual divorce. In her professional life, she focused on psychology, obtaining academic degrees from Radcliffe College and Columbia University, and she held a teaching position in early childhood education at Sarah Lawrence College, starting from 1982 until 2014, during which she led the graduate program known as the Art of Teaching. Her professional efforts centered on topics like child development processes and methods for training educators, and she wrote books on the subject, including one titled Nurturing Young Minds. At the age of 21 in 1953, Sarah entered into marriage with Anthony de Bonaventura, an acclaimed pianist and conductor known for performances with leading orchestras and teaching at Boston University. The couple had 3 children together before their divorce in 1972. Following that, she married Ronald A. Wilford in 1973, who was an influential agent in the music industry responsible for managing talents like Itzhak Perlman and handling representation for the Metropolitan Opera. Their marriage continued until Wilford's death in 2015. Sarah's overall life combined elements of the Roosevelt family's enduring resilience with interests in the arts, shaped by her grandfather's commitment to public service roles and the cultural support from her adoptive family. The younger daughter, Kate Roosevelt, was born on February 13, 1936, and she passed away in 2002 at the age of 66. Like her sister, Kate was adopted by Whitney and became known as Kate Roosevelt Whitney. Kate led a life that was comparatively more private than some family members, highlighted by her 1959 marriage to William F. Haddad, who worked as a journalist, served as a political aide to President John F. Kennedy, and became an advocate for affordable generic drugs. He brought attention to issues in pharmaceutical pricing while serving as director of the Office of Economic Opportunity and established the Generic Pharmaceutical Association. The couple had one daughter, Luli Haddad, who in later years provided care for her father up until his death in 2020. Kate offered support to her husband's various efforts, which included probes into organized crime activities and initiatives aimed at addressing poverty through government programs. The task of raising Sarah and Kate in the 1930s, a decade that covered the severe challenges of the Great Depression and the building tensions toward World War II, required Betsey to concentrate on providing emotional consistency for the girls. They participated in long-standing Roosevelt family customs, such as spending Christmas holidays at the White House or enjoying summer stays at the Hyde Park Estate and its associated Valkill Cottage. But they also dealt with constant attention from the media and the societal expectations for women during that era. Betsey worked to teach them principles of self-reliance and the importance of education, making motherhood her main priority even as issues in the marriage grew more apparent. The ways in which the daughters lived their lives reflect Betsey's guidance in helping them manage the weight of their family heritage, alongside pursuing individual successes, adding a personal touch to the broader image of the Roosevelt dynasty under public observation. The marriage eventually broke down, leading to a divorce in 1940. In 1938, James made the decision to move to Hollywood, where he took a job assisting Samuel Goldwyn at the MGM studios. Motivated by a wish for greater independence away from his father's strong influence, and possibly to use his existing connections for opportunities in business. This change from being a political aide in Washington to working as an executive in the film industry was similar to the paths taken by others who sought fresh starts in California's growing entertainment sector during that time. Betsey relocated with him to the West Coast in an effort to maintain the relationship and find a way to reconcile, but the existing differences between them only became more pronounced over time. The divorce proceedings concluded in a Los Angeles court on March 29, 1940, based on Betsey's statements regarding fundamental incompatibility, and the judgment gave her primary custody of the children, along with financial support for their upbringing. This outcome was somewhat unusual and progressive given the male-dominated nature of family law in the 1940s, indicating Betsey's resolve in the matter. Biographers who have studied the family have described how James had very limited contact with Sarah and Kate after the divorce, linking this to his personal difficulties in defining his own identity separate from being FDR's son, which contributed to his emotional withdrawal. After the divorce, James entered into 3 additional marriages. First in 1941 to Rommel Teresa Schneider, who was a nurse and with whom he had 3 children, then in 1956 to Gladys Irene Owens, and finally in 1969 to Mary Winskill, a union that endured until his passing. In the years that followed, James served in the U.S. Marines during World War II, pursued various business ventures, including some insurance operations that drew controversy, and held a political office as a congressman representing California from 1955 to 1965. For Betsey, The end of the marriage meant entering a phase of raising the children on her own during the uncertainties brought by the war, but she managed to adapt and succeed, later marrying Jock Whitney in 1942 and engaging in philanthropy that benefited institutions like the Whitney Museum of American Art and research in medical fields. Personal life and second marriage, happy marriage to Millionaire. John Hay Whitney, Betsey's second marriage to John Hay Jock. Whitney, which took place on March 1, 1942, marked a significant shift in her personal life, transitioning from the political sphere associated with her first husband, James Roosevelt, to a world of immense wealth, diplomacy, and philanthropy. John Hay Whitney, born on August 17, 1904, and deceased on February 8, 1982, was a descendant of a prominent American family with roots tracing back to early settlers, including Puritan immigrants and Mayflower passengers. His grandfathers included William C. Whitney, who served as Secretary of the Navy under President Grover Cleveland, and John Hay, who was Secretary of State under Presidents William McKinley and Theodore Roosevelt. This lineage provided Whitney with a foundation in public service and business acumen that shaped his career and lifestyle. Prior to marrying Betsey, Whitney had been wed to socialite Mary Elizabeth Liz Altimus from 1931 to 1940, a union that ended in divorce without children, during which he gifted her the expansive Llangollen estate in Virginia, known for horse breeding. The marriage to Betsey occurred in a modest ceremony at her widowed mother's apartment on East 86th Street in New York City, reflecting the constraints of World War II, including resource shortages and a national focus on austerity amid the ongoing global conflict that had escalated following the Pearl Harbor attack in December 1941. nytimes.com. At the time, Betsey was 33 years old and Whitney was 37, both entering the marriage after previous divorces, which added layers of maturity and cautioned their commitment. Whitney's professional achievements and social standing played a crucial role in the success and dynamics of the marriage, providing a framework of influence and purpose that aligned with Betsey's background in high society. In 1957, President Dwight D. Eisenhower appointed Whitney as the United States ambassador to the Court of St. James. James's, the formal designation for the U.S. ambassador to the United Kingdom, a position he held until 1961. This appointment echoed his grandfather John Hay's diplomatic legacy and came at a critical juncture in post-World War II international relations, particularly following the 1956 Suez Crisis, which had strained Anglo-American ties. Whitney's tenure focused on rebuilding alliances, promoting cultural exchanges such as art loans and sports diplomacy, and facilitating negotiations on trade and mutual defense during the early Cold War era. He hosted prominent figures, including Queen Elizabeth II and President Eisenhower, leveraging his personal charm and political astuteness to enhance soft power. Betsey, as the ambassador's wife, assumed a prominent role in diplomatic hosting, organizing events like teas and dinners that embodied American hospitality while navigating British protocol. This period enriched their relationship by introducing new cultural experiences, from attending royal functions to exploring European history, and it positioned them at the center of transatlantic diplomacy, where Whitney's efforts contributed to stabilizing relations amid tensions with the Soviet Union. Whitney's wealth, estimated in the 1970s by Forbes magazine to place him among the world's top 10 richest individuals, with a fortune equivalent to billions in today's dollars, derived from multiple sources that highlighted his business savvy. He inherited approximately $20 million, about $343.9 million adjusted for inflation, From his father in 1927 and 4 times that, from his mother in 1944, rooted in family ties to Standard Oil and other industrial enterprises. Beyond inheritance, Whitney founded J.H. Whitney and Company in 1946, recognized as the oldest venture capital firm in the United States, where he coined the term venture capital, alongside partner Benno C. Schmidt Sr. The firm invested in innovative companies like Spencer Chemical, which advanced synthetic fibers, and Minute Maid, revolutionizing the frozen juice industry. Additionally, Whitney served as publisher of the New York Herald Tribune from 1961 until its merger in 1966, shaping media narratives during a transformative period for journalism, and he was chairman of the International Herald Tribune. His investments extended to entertainment, financing landmark films such as Gone with the Wind, 1939, and Rebecca, 1940, both Oscar winners for Best Picture through Selznick International Pictures and Broadway Productions. A book review described him as politically astute U.S. ambassador to the United Kingdom, philanthropist, capturing his multifaceted contributions that went beyond personal enrichment to societal impact. ian.wikipedia.org. These endeavors not only amplified his wealth, but also aligned with Betsey's social grace, allowing her to participate in cultural and charitable activities that reinforced their partnership. The couple's lifestyle was characterized by an array of properties that served as reflections of their interests in equestrian sports, golf, diplomacy, and urban sophistication, each with historical significance and functional roles in their daily lives. The Green Tree Estate on Long Island, located in Manhasset, New York, spanned 400 acres and was built in 1904 as a Gilded Age mansion with 38 rooms, stables, gardens, polo fields, and a grand ballroom for hosting lavish parties. Originally part of the Whitney family holdings, it symbolized old money elegance and was used for escaping urban pressures, while entertaining elite guests, including literary figures like Truman Capote. Upon Whitney's death, it passed to the Green Tree Foundation, the family's philanthropic arm, and remains preserved as a historical site. Longalandpress.com. Greenwood Plantation in Georgia, near Thomasville, covered thousands of acres in the Red Hills region, featuring a Greek Revival main house built in 1838 by a pioneer family, with hunting lodges, wildlife preserves, and historic plantings. Inherited by Whitney from his mother in 1944, it served as a southern retreat for quail hunting and rural tranquility, embodying a nod to American heritage. After Betsey's death in 1998, portions were sold, including 4,000 acres for $22 million in 2015 to Emily Patty Vanderbilt Wade, while the main house and buildings were transferred separately, highlighting its enduring value as a conservation and equestrian property. In Manhattan, they maintained a townhouse on Fifth Avenue and a luxurious apartment at the Carlisle Hotel, serving as urban bases for cultural pursuits, with art collections featuring impressionist works like Van Gogh paintings, high ceilings, and Central Park views that facilitated interactions with New York's social elite at galas and operas. Their summer residence on Fisher's Island off the coast near New London, Connecticut, offered seclusion with private beaches, yachting facilities, and a ferry-accessible retreat for family barbecues and relaxation away from public scrutiny. The 12-room house in Saratoga Springs, New York, was strategically used during the August racing season at the Saratoga Racecourse, where they watched their horses compete, placed bets, and mingled with enthusiasts, tying into Whitney's ownership of Green Tree Stable, which won multiple Belmont Stakes. The golf house in Augusta, Georgia, positioned near the Augusta National Golf Club, home of the Masters tournament, allowed Whitney, a member who played with presidents like Eisenhower, to hone his skills and engage in the sport's social network. During his ambassadorship, Cherry Hill and Virginia Water, Surrey, England, leased from the Crown Estate, provided a spacious English countryside home with manicured lawns, equestrian facilities near the Ascot Racecourse and Polo Grounds, and proximity to Windsor Castle. This residence facilitated diplomatic entertaining, such as dinners with Churchill's family, and blended American and British traditions, with Betsey often wearing elegant hats to races. Finally, the co-owned horse farm in Kentucky's Bluegrass region, with Whitney's sister, Joan Whitney Payson, focused on breeding thoroughbred champions like Bold Ruler and Stage Door Johnny, winners at the Kentucky Derby, merging business with their shared passion for equestrianism. These properties were not merely symbols of wealth, but practical extensions of their lifestyles, supporting hobbies, social obligations, and family bonding, all enabled by Whitney's fortune without financial constraints. The happiness in Betsey and Whitney's marriage stood out as an exception among the Cushing Sisters unions, which were frequently critiqued in biographical accounts for being driven by financial or social ambitions rather than mutual affection, often resulting in dissatisfaction or instability. Betsey's sisters, Mary Minnie Cushing and Barbara Babe Cushing, followed similar paths orchestrated by their mother, Harvey Cushing's widow, who emphasized marrying into prominence. Minnie married Vincent Astor in 1940, inheriting his $200 million fortune, but facing a short-lived marriage marked by emotional challenges. Later wedding artist James Whitney Fosberg in 1953 until her death in 1978. Babe wed Stanley Mortimer Jr. in 1940, a Standard Oil heir, but divorced amid reported unhappiness. Then married CBS founder William S. Paley in 1947. A union glamorous yet strained by infidelities and power dynamics until her death from cancer in 1978. In contrast, Betsey's marriage to Whitney endured for 4 decades until his death in 1982 from heart failure at age 77, characterized by stability and genuine connection. A book review insightfully noted, among the 6 husbands of the 3 sisters, Betsey's second husband, John Hay Jock Whitney, was the most caring and worked the hardest for the betterment of the less fortunate. n.wikipedia.org. This reflected Whitney's dedication extending from family to philanthropy via the John Hay Whitney Foundation, established in 1946 to provide fellowships for racially and culturally deprived individuals, supporting over 10,000 scholarships in education, arts, and professions, with annual contributions of about $1 million from Whitney personally. The foundation focused on minorities and women, funding medical research, hospital wings, conservation efforts, and donations to institutions like Yale University and the Museum of Modern Art, embodying a shared value system that strengthened their bond. Another review stated, in the end, perhaps only Betsey truly loved her very wealthy husband, implying a profound emotional reciprocity absent in her sister's experiences, where marriages often appeared transactional. nytimes.com. This love was evident in their organic partnership, rooted in mutual respect and shared interests like horses, travel, including African safaris and European yacht trips, and giving back rather than arranged alliances common among the elite in the mid-20th century. Wealth served as a facilitator, not a substitute, for affection, allowing quiet evenings, support during Whitney's World War II service, where he was captured and escaped as an intelligence officer, and navigation of economic shifts like the 1970s oil crisis. Betsey's independence, seen in her fashion designs and charitable involvement, was encouraged by Whitney, contrasting with potentially controlling dynamics in her sisters' lives. Their childless marriage, beyond the adopted daughters, enabled focus on philanthropy and adventures, contributing to resilience despite inevitable challenges, such as health issues. Betsey outlived Whitney until March 25, 1998, managing estates and continuing his legacy through the Green Tree Foundation, with her fortune reaching $700 million by 1990. This union exemplified a balanced partnership where financial security intertwined with emotional fulfillment, setting it apart as a model of enduring happiness in high society. Charity and social contribution, the mark of kindness. Betsey Cushing, Roosevelt. Whitney's philanthropic career and social contributions represent a profound legacy of goodwill directed toward meaningful societal impact through sustained support for healthcare, education, arts, and community development. This section examines her founding of key initiatives, her roles in major institutions, and her significant donations, particularly after 1982, analyzing how these efforts not only provided immediate aid, but also fostered long-term institutional growth and societal equity in an era of evolving philanthropy. Betsey's establishment of the Green Tree Foundation in 1983 marked a pivotal moment in her charitable endeavors, prompting her to formalize her commitment to community upliftment. The foundation repurposed symbols of wealth into a vehicle for public good with its primary objective to bolster local community organizations, focusing on initiatives that enhanced education, social services, and health outreach for underserved populations. For instance, the foundation prioritized projects aimed at improving literacy and skill development among community members, often targeting grassroots efforts that larger national charities might overlook due to their scale, such as small-scale tutoring programs in underfunded schools or vocational training workshops for adults seeking employment transitions. Betsey assumed the role of president, actively overseeing operations, to align with her vision of empowerment through localized action, which emphasized understanding and addressing specific neighborhood needs rather than imposing top-down solutions, involving detailed assessments of local demographics and collaborative planning with community leaders to ensure relevance and effectiveness. Since its inception, the Green Tree Foundation has disbursed over $15 million in grants, supporting a wide array of programs that build community resilience, such as educational workshops on financial literacy, youth development initiatives including mentorship schemes and after-school activities, and social welfare services like food security drives and housing assistance networks. This funding has enabled countless projects to flourish, demonstrating Betsey's belief that effective philanthropy begins at the community level, where interpersonal connections allow for tailored interventions that strengthen social fabrics, creating self-sustaining cycles of improvement that reduce dependency on external aid over time. In a deeper analysis, this foundation's creation reflected broader shifts in American philanthropy during the 1980s, a decade marked by Reagan administration policies that reduced federal funding for social programs through budget cuts and deregulation, prompting affluent individuals to establish private foundations as alternatives to government support, thereby filling voids in areas like poverty alleviation and education access. Betsey's strategic use of her substantial fortune, estimated at $700 million by Forbes in 1990, positioned her as a trailblazer in this trend, prioritizing personalized, community-driven giving that empowered local leaders and avoided bureaucratic inefficiencies, such as by streamlining grant application processes to favor innovative small-scale proposals over rigid, large institutional requests. By ensuring the foundation's longevity beyond her death in 1998, she created an enduring mechanism for change, one that continues to operate today, adapting to contemporary issues like digital literacy programs to bridge the digital divide in rural areas and mental health support services in post-pandemic communities, where isolation and economic strain have heightened needs for accessible counseling and wellness resources. This approach recognized the importance of stable community structures in fostering individual success, promoting holistic development that integrates economic, educational, and emotional well-being. In the realm of healthcare, Betsey emerged as a formidable benefactor, directing resources toward institutions that advanced medical care and research. Her support for North Shore University Hospital in Manhasset stands out as a cornerstone of this commitment, with roots tracing back to the early 1950s, when a 15-acre parcel, approximately 61,000 square meters, of prime land was donated for the hospital's construction. This land, valued highly due to its location in a rapidly growing suburban area, transformed private assets into a public resource capable of serving expanding populations in Long Island following World War II, addressing the surge in demand for medical services as urban exodus led to new residential developments. Betsey extended this initial contribution through ongoing philanthropy, providing financial donations and possibly volunteer efforts to sustain the hospital's growth, including campaigns to upgrade equipment and expand departments. Today, as part of the Northwell Health System, North Shore has evolved into a leading medical facility, handling over 90,000 annual admissions and offering comprehensive services in emergency care, cardiology with specialized heart rhythm clinics and interventional procedures, oncology through integrated cancer centers with multidisciplinary teams, and neurology featuring stroke units and neurosurgical suites. Her involvement facilitated this expansion, enabling research initiatives that have yielded innovations in patient outcomes, such as advanced diagnostic tools like high-resolution imaging systems and treatment protocols incorporating personalized medicine based on genetic profiling. Analyzing this deeper, Betsey's contributions prioritized health equity, particularly in suburban contexts where access to quality care was burgeoning but uneven, with disparities affecting lower-income families and ethnic minorities who faced barriers to specialized treatments. The donation addressed the post-war demographic shift, with families moving to areas like Manhasset needing robust healthcare infrastructure to handle increased caseloads in preventive care and chronic disease management. Betsey's sustained support created a ripple effect, enhancing community health metrics through reduced mortality rates in key areas like cardiovascular events and improving overall life expectancy indicators, while also reducing disparities by funding outreach programs that brought services to remote neighborhoods. This pattern of long-term investment underscores her philosophy that true health progress demands continuous funding, not isolated gifts, allowing the hospital to integrate cutting-edge technologies like robotic surgery for minimally invasive procedures that shorten recovery times and telemedicine platforms that extend specialist consultations to underserved regions, which trace their roots to early endowments that seeded innovation funds and collaborative research partnerships with academic institutions. Equally significant was Betsey's deep engagement with the New York Hospital Cornell Medical Center, now New York Presbyterian, Weill Cornell Medical Center, where her participation extended beyond mere donations to active immersion in its governance and programs. As an honorary life governor and dedicated supporter, she attended events such as fundraising galas and strategic planning sessions, offered advisory input on expansions like building new research wings, and mobilized social connections to secure further resources, embodying a multifaceted role that amplified the center's reach through networked fundraising and policy advocacy. This institution, with origins in the 18th century, specializes in advanced research and patient care in neurology with focus on neurodegenerative disorders, pediatrics including neonatal intensive care units, and psychiatry through comprehensive mental health programs integrating therapy and pharmacology. Her efforts contributed to key developments, such as facility upgrades to modernize operating theaters and research funding that propelled discoveries in fields like organ transplantation techniques that improved graft success rates and infectious diseases management during outbreaks, enhancing protocols for containment and treatment in the mid-20th century. In analytical terms, this support occurred amid America's medical renaissance, where private philanthropy filled crucial gaps in funding for innovations like antibiotics that revolutionized bacterial infection treatments and surgical advancements that reduced operative risks at a time when public budgets were strained by wartime recoveries and economic expansions. Betsey's involvement exemplified the society matron model, leveraging social capital to bridge wealth and need by organizing donor consortiums and influencing grant allocations, while her loyalty over decades, culminating in a $15 million bequest, ensured sustainability, allowing the center to pursue long-term projects like precision medicine initiatives that tailor therapies to individual genetic profiles and global health partnerships that export expertise to developing regions facing similar challenges. This consistent dedication highlighted her strategic selection of causes, focusing on institutions with historical ties to public welfare, emphasizing public health policy through investments in preventive care models and community health education campaigns that promote early detection and lifestyle interventions. Transitioning to education in the arts, Betsey's close affiliations with the Museum of Modern Art, MoMA, and Yale University reflected a passion for cultural democratization and academic excellence, blending personal interests with broader societal benefits. At MoMA, founded in 1929 to champion modern art amid post-Depression efforts to make culture accessible to the masses through free exhibitions and educational programs, Betsey served as an honorary trustee, contributing through financial gifts that supported acquisition funds, patronage of emerging artists, and bequests such as notable paintings that enriched permanent collections. Her involvement helped curate collections featuring masters like Van Gogh with his expressive post-impressionist works, and Pollock through abstract expressionism pieces that captured post-war American energy, enhancing public access to modern works via expanded gallery spaces and outreach initiatives like traveling exhibits to regional museums. Yale University held significance. Betsey's financial and advisory support bolstered scholarships for underrepresented students, facilities upgrades including library renovations, and programs in humanities and sciences, subtly promoting diversity in an era of male-dominated Ivies by funding initiatives that increased enrollment of women and minorities in professional schools. Deeper scrutiny reveals these connections mirrored 20th century trends. Philanthropy fueled university expansions through endowed chairs and research centers that drove interdisciplinary studies. And Betsey's arts role challenged gender barriers, paving ways for women in cultural leadership by advocating for inclusive board compositions and female-curated shows that highlighted overlooked artists. Her efforts interconnected with board roles, creating a network that magnified impact, such as through joint exhibitions that blended MoMA's modern focus with Yale's academic resources for educational outreach programs like art history seminars and public lectures that engage thousands annually, fostering cultural literacy and inspiring new generations of creators and appreciators. Over decades, Betsey's board memberships in prestigious organizations underscored her strategic philanthropy, where active participation amplified collective impact through hands-on governance. At the Whitney Museum of American Art, established in 1930 to elevate overlooked American artists amid a European-dominated art scene, Betsey's board tenure influenced its trajectory from Greenwich Village origins with intimate galleries to modern locations like the Brewer Building's brutalist architecture and today's meatpacking district site with expansive views, guiding acquisitions of contemporary works and exhibits that spotlight domestic talent, such as surveys of urban realism or abstract movements that reflected societal changes. The John Hay Whitney Foundation, launched in 1946 for fellowships aiding minorities and disadvantaged youth in humanities and public affairs, saw Betsey perpetuate its innovative diversity support post-1982, awarding thousands of grants that launched influential careers in fields like journalism, policy analysis, and creative writing, with recipients often going on to lead nonprofits or author impactful studies on social justice. The Association for Homemaker Service focused on family support like childcare networks that provided affordable daycare options and training for domestic workers in skills such as nutrition planning and household management, aligned with evolving women's roles in the 1950s to 1980s by addressing work-life balance challenges during the rise of dual-income households and feminist movements. These roles involved rigorous duties, budget reviews to allocate resources efficiently, advocacy for policy changes like expanded grant criteria, and strategic planning sessions that attracted donors through high-profile events and broke gender norms in boardrooms by demonstrating women's capability in decision-making. Analytically, they demonstrated Betsey's leverage of established platforms for multiplied effect, ensuring organizational resilience through economic fluctuations like recessions by diversifying funding sources and inspiring inclusive governance models that incorporated diverse voices, leading to more equitable program designs and broader societal reach. The profundity of Betsey's generosity intensified after 1982 as she made major donations that amplified independent action. Her $8 million donation to Yale School of Medicine in 1985, the largest in its history then, equivalent to over $20 million today, funded the renovation and enhancement of the medical library, supporting research in genetics through genome mapping projects and infectious diseases with epidemiological studies that inform vaccine development. This gift boosted endowments, attracting top talent amid competitive federal funding by endowing professorships and lab facilities that facilitated collaborations with industry partners. It exemplified 1980s trends of private philanthropy bridging gaps in research budgets, setting benchmarks for major gifts that encouraged scaled-up donations across academia, leading to accelerated advancements in biomedical fields like immunotherapy. Her contributions to the National Gallery of Art were equally transformative, including a $2 million endowment for acquisitions to build holdings of European and American masterpieces, and the transfer of 9 significant American and French paintings from a charitable trust, plus a Toulouse-Lautrec piece that depicted vibrant Parisian nightlife scenes. Her will added 8 more artworks, ranging from impressionist landscapes to modern abstracts, democratizing elite collections for public enjoyment by making them accessible in free national venues that attract millions of visitors annually. The 1990 Renoir sale for $78.1 million, featuring the lively dance scene Bal au Moulin de la Galette, Montmartre, and 1999 collection auction for $128.3 million recycled proceeds into further giving, influencing art markets by setting price precedents for 19th century works, and inspiring estate strategies that incorporate philanthropic bequests to reduce tax burdens while enhancing cultural legacies. Finally, her $15 million bequest to New York Hospital Cornell Medical Center from an institution with roots dating to 1771 supported expansions like new research pavilions and endowments for rare disease studies, reaffirming health priorities through investments in specialized clinics for conditions like autoimmune disorders. This meticulous planning ensured enduring impact by creating perpetual funds that generate annual income for ongoing operations and innovations. Death and legacy, ending a remarkable life. Betsey Cushing. Whitney's life came to a quiet close on March 25, 1998, when she passed away at North Shore University Hospital in Manhasset, New York, at the age of 89. What makes this especially touching is that the hospital itself was built on land her husband, John Hay Whitney, had donated back in the 1950s, a clear sign of the couple's deep-rooted dedication to their community and to advancing health care. Her death didn't just end an extraordinary chapter, it wrapped up a journey that stretched across almost the whole 20th century. Born in 1908, right in the heart of pre-World War I, America's strict social rules, she lived all the way into the late 1990s, an era buzzing with cultural shifts and tech breakthroughs. Along the way, she wasn't just a bystander, she was right in the mix of history. Think about her days as a White House hostess during her first marriage to James Roosevelt, the son of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, where she hosted dignitaries and shaped social scenes at the highest level. Then, in her later years, she stepped up as a key philanthropist beside her second husband, turning their wealth into real change. By 1990, Forbes had valued her personal fortune at around $700 million, a mind-blowing amount that highlighted how savvy she was with money. This wasn't just luck or inheritance. It came from smart marriages, sharp investments, and her hands-on role in the Whitney family's wide-ranging empire, which spanned everything from publishing to horse racing and real estate. It put her squarely among America's richest women, a testament to her independence and business smarts. When it came to her will, Betsey showed her generous side in a big way. She left 8 major paintings to the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C., plus an extra $2 million set aside for the gallery to buy more works down the line. These weren't random pieces, they were gems from her own collection, like Vincent van Gogh's raw and intense self-portrait from 1889, Henri Matisse's colorful open window, Collioure from 1905 that bursts with Mediterranean vibes, Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec's lively Marcel Lender, dancing the bolero in Chilperic from 1895 to 1896, Georges Braque's intriguing The Harbor of La Ciotat from 1907 with its early Cubist touches, Raoul Dufy's breezy The Beach at Sainte-Adresse from 1906, and a few others that had been the stars of her private world. By giving them away, she made sure her love for art wasn't locked up in her homes, like her sprawling Long Island estate or her upscale Manhattan spots, but shared with the public, inspiring countless visitors for years to come. And she didn't stop there. Her estate also handed over specific treasures to other places, such as a Monet painting to the Yale University Art Gallery and a portrait to the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. This thoughtful spread of her collection boosted its reach, turning personal passions into tools for education and inspiration everywhere. To really grasp Betsey's legacy, you have to see her in the context of the famous Cushing Sisters. That's her, Babe Paley, and Minnie Astor Fosberg, who basically defined New York's upper crust for decades. They were born to Dr. Harvey Cushing, a groundbreaking neurosurgeon, and his wife Kate, who was all about climbing the social ladder. From the start, the girls were groomed to marry rich and powerful men, a plan that launched them straight into America's elite circles. Their world was pure extravagance. Think massive homes like Betsey's Green Tree Estate on Long Island, covering thousands of acres with polo fields and stables for prize-winning horses, closets full of high-end fashion from Chanel and Dior, jewelry that sparkled with gems from Cartier and Van Cleef and Arpels, and a social circle packed with heavy hitters like the Astors, Vanderbilts, and Rockefellers. People compared them to the Paris Hiltons of today, but honestly, the Cushing sisters had way more depth. Their lives wove through politics, media giants, and cultural giving, making them far more captivating. In many ways, they symbolize the end of that old-fashioned high society, caught in the shift from a time when women were essentially married off like chess pieces, often by pushy parents like their mom, to a post-World War II world where those stiff class barriers started crumbling. You could see it in how women's roles evolved, moving from debutante events and gossip columns ruling the day to more freedom and self-determination. Yet the sisters stayed somewhat tied to those old ways, their stories blending the sparkle of mid-century America with the real limits imposed by gender and status. They handled fame and private struggles with grace, drawing people in with their mix of allure and humanity. When you dig into what made them truly happy, though, it's a heartbreaking twist. All that wealth, influence, and luxury often left real joy and love just out of grasp. Growing up in a home where weddings were more like deals than romances, they learned to chase stability and prestige over heartfelt connections, ending up in marriages that offered comfort, but not much soul. Take Babe Paley, the baby of the family, and a style icon who landed in the International Best Dressed List Hall of Fame. Her life with CBS boss William S. Paley looked perfect on the outside, but his well-known affairs with other high-profile women trapped her in what folks called a gilded cage. She kept up this image of flawless elegance, curated outfits, hosting like a pro, but behind it was loneliness and discontent, made worse by her later battle with cancer. Minnie had her own rough ride, marrying Vincent Astor and then James Whitney Fosberg, dealing with divorces and stepping back from the limelight, her quieter story often eclipsed by her sister's bolder ones. Betsey, however, broke the pattern with her second marriage to John Hay Jock Whitney. From 1942 right up to his passing in 1982, it was built on real mutual respect, common hobbies like building a top-notch collection of impressionist and modern art, and teaming up on giving back. Plus, there was that true friendship that got them through tough times, both personal and in the public eye. As a big-time financier, owner of the New York Herald Tribune, and even U.S. ambassador to the UK, Whitney gave her not just riches, but real emotional backing, letting her thrive outside the traps that caught her sisters. Without the drama and betrayals that hit Babe and Minnie, This relationship brought a genuine feel to Betsey's life, making her seem more relatable in a family full of distant glamour and showing how she found that rare equilibrium. For a fuller picture of her world, secondary sources like David Grafton's 1992 book, The Sisters, Babe Mortimer Paley, Betsey Roosevelt Whitney, Minnie Astor Fosberg, are gold. It's a deep dive into the 20th century's history, society, and business scenes, painting lively pictures of their lavish lives. From estates like Babe's Kaluna Farm in Manhasset or Betsey's Green Tree, to wardrobes straight from Paris designers, and nights dripping with jewels at elite parties. Grafton gets into the mental side of their marriages and breakups, tying them back to their upbringing under a mom obsessed with status and a dad buried in work, which built their ambition but also a wall around their feelings. He shows how those early days molded their goals. Betsey's story as one of bouncing back with a solid second marriage versus Babe's tale of paying dearly for chasing perfection. Folks who read it love the way it hooks you, mixing personal stories with a bigger cultural backdrop, perfect for anyone curious about that mid-century vibe. That said, the book isn't flawless. Critics have called out issues that hold it back from being great. A lot point to how it repeats stuff, looping over events and details like the author was short on fresh info and had to stretch things out, which can get annoying fast. It skimps on real psychological depth, staying on the surface without big insights into their inner thoughts, making it feel basic and a bit too echoey. Reviewers say it skips the ugly bits, like how the sisters dished gossip, had affairs, or schemed to land rich husbands, stuff that actually led to those marriages crashing. By dodging that, it misses the full mess of their lives, opting for a tidy, almost too clean version. On top of that, it obsesses over things, listing out every jewel and artwork in their wills, which feels nosy and shifts focus from the people to the stuff. The writing gets slammed as clunky with a gushing vibe that's way too gushy and mushy, like it's idolizing without any tough questions. For example, Kirkus Reviews dubbed it curiously lifeless, arguing that such dazzling women needed a livelier spin. People often read Grafton's book next to others like Melanie Benjamin's The Swans of Fifth Avenue, or Lawrence Lemur's Capote's Women, which zoom in on similar society stars, especially Truman Capote's Swans, that group of posh women he hung with. Those books obsess over the Times socialites, spotlighting Babe as a prime swan, whose world cracked when Capote spilled secrets in his unfinished answered prayers. Betsey pops up on the edges because of family links, drawing sharp contrasts. Babe's sad grace against Betsey's steadier happiness. Reading them together amps up the sisters' draw, letting you compare views from various writers. Looking at Betsey through all this, it's a blend of wow and wistfulness. Her life of riches and perks was something to envy, but it hid how chasing cash and clout often drowned out real happiness and love, leaving a bittersweet aftertaste. Critics and readers wonder, was the shine worth the heartaches? Still, her second marriage stands out as the bright spot in the Cushing saga, proving you could find real peace in the midst of all that excess, and marking her as the one who nailed the best rounded life. All in all, Betsey Cushing Whitney's story is a rich mix of 20th century riches, social power, and kindness. Coming from a family where the sisters were primed for money-making matches, she hit gold in her bond with John Hay Whitney, mixing wealth with what looked like true bliss. Her legacy goes beyond her huge fortune and standout art stash. It's wrapped up in her big-time giving to health, schools, and culture hubs. While the records don't cover any straight links to Truman Capote or tag her as an unsuccessful swan, like Babe was in those tales, Betsey's wins shine on their own, more steady personally and giving more back than her sisters. It's a tale that makes you think about where privilege meets meaning, showing how she steered through high society to build something lasting and real.